If you're like one of the millions of people all around the world that has set a New Year's resolution, or really any goal any time of the year, then you know how hard it is to keep going. Getting started is usually fueled by energy and excitement, but it's the keeping going that takes willpower and discipline. If having the willpower to do the hard stuff that it takes to achieve your goal is something that you struggle with, then stay tuned. This video is just for you. Hi, I'm Jess of JessDickerson.com, and I'm a life coach helping you go from stress to success by being more confident, more motivated, and less stressed. If you want to make sure you don't miss an episode, go down and hit the subscribe button below. By the end of this video, you're going to have a better understanding about how willpower works, and you're going to know 6 ways that are actually better than willpower for achieving your goals. So let's talk about willpower for a second. The common belief around willpower is that it's finite, that you have a limited supply. So you wake up in the morning and somehow your willpower has been magically restored from yesterday. And if you're careful and you don't spend too much of it around the day, then when you get home, you'll have enough to convince yourself to work out. But if instead, over the course of the day, you've had to use up all of your willpower, then when you get home at the end of the day, all you'll be able to convince yourself to do is sit on the sofa, eat chips, and binge watch. This idea is based off a small study that was done that made some assumptions that could have been true or maybe weren't, and it kind of stuck in our collective brain. Since then, researchers have punched a whole bunch of holes in the theories from those findings, but just like the marshmallow test, they are just stuck in our heads, and it's very hard to believe anything else. Some of these more recent studies have been from renowned researchers like Carol Dweck out of Stanford, and they basically say that if you think willpower is finite, then it is. If you think you have an unlimited supply of willpower, well, then you do. Basically, you are what you believe. Easier said than done, though, am I right? Many people struggle their whole lives just to believe in themselves. So all of a sudden, just changing your thinking to believe that you have all of the willpower you'd ever need to accomplish any of your goals seems like kind of a leap. The good news is that there are many things that you can do to avoid needing to tap into your willpower in the first place. If you can set up your environment to work for you instead of against you, then you will get around the whole need to will yourself to accomplish something in the first place. It will simply become a natural part of your day. The first way to do this is to consider what energizes you. This is a concept that I'm huge on. Managing your energy, not your time, is something that I talk about a lot in my speeches. And the reason is because if you are managing your energy and doing things that give you energy instead of taking them away from you, not only are you going to be happier, but when you do have to do something that drains your energy, it will be a lot easier to get through it. For example, if you hated math, would it make any sense at all to become an accountant? Of course not. You would be miserable all the time, and it would take huge amounts of willpower just for you to get out of bed to go to work. So in an exercise example, do you hate running? Then don't run. There are a million different kinds of cardio workouts that you could do that would excite you way more, and therefore you wouldn't even need to use willpower to keep going and doing them. If you can spin it so that you're spending more of your time working on things that energize you, you're more likely to stick with it. The second method involves managing your focus. Now, I've talked about focus in a previous video, so I'll link that up in the cards. But basically, managing your focus takes willpower. We live in a 24/7, always connected, never-ending social media scroll kind of world, and we are constantly being bombarded by distractions. Honestly, if I think about all of the things that I was competing with just when I was trying to write the script for this video, I'm exhausted, and I've already minimized a whole chunk of normal distractions. Every time you get distracted, whether it's by something external like getting a text message or something internal like you just remembered something you need to pick up at the grocery store on the way home, you have to use your willpower to get back to whatever you were working on. The easiest thing to do to avoid this from happening is to turn off all of the notifications that you can and to hide your phone while you're working. Now, it sounds ridiculous to turn off all of your notifications and then have to hide your phone, But studies have shown that even if you put it in airplane mode and flip it over, if it's sitting on your desk right in front of you and you can see it while you're working, it is still stealing focus. Now, you can't necessarily stop remembering things you need to do later or what you need to get at the grocery store. But to help minimize these distractions from stealing your focus, keep a pen and paper with you whenever you're working. Because you don't want to have to pick up your phone and distract yourself even further in order just to write something down on your grocery list, have the pen and paper there, scribble out whatever you need. You'll feel much better after you write it down and get it out of your head, and it will stop constantly distracting you because you won't be afraid you're going to forget about it. All right, on to our third option. You know what's stronger than willpower? Habits. If you've ever tried to quit a bad habit like smoking or biting your fingernails, then you know how deeply ingrained habits are. And the best way to get to your goals is actually to engineer these bad habits to become good ones. I know that probably sounds too good to be true, but it's not. It's neuroscience. Basically, your brain is a puppy. It just wants the reward, and it really doesn't care what it has to do to get the reward. In fact, the action part of the habit, the part we actually tend to think about as the habit, the smoking, the biting the fingernails, is the part that your brain cares the least about. What your brain wants is the reward that happens at the end of the habit, and that is actually how the habit is formed. So, find a habit that you don't like, change the action in the middle, and then find a way to get the reward that you used to get from the old habit. This might seem harder if there's a chemical substance that you're addicted to behind your habits. But even behind the habits like smoking and drinking, where there is a chemical or drug involved, a lot of them didn't form because you wanted the chemical. You wanted something more like stress relief or escapism. And that is actually the reward that whatever your habit is providing for you. And so replacing the thing isn't necessarily finding some new chemical substance to be addicted to, but it's about finding some other way to get your stress relief or escapism that you used to get from the old habit. So see what you can do about figuring out, what am I really getting out of this habit? And what could I do instead to get that awesome thing that is actually healthier and will move me towards my goals? If you can engineer it so that you're changing the action in the middle of your habit, then you will eliminate the need for willpower at all. And that habit will keep you going way longer than any amount of willpower ever would have. Option number 4 seems a little bit obvious, but it's actually related back to the habits, and that is to structure your environment so you don't need willpower. Habits are called up with a trigger. The trigger is the first part of it, and it is the thing that indicates that it's time to do the action, and it will make you start craving the reward. For example, your trigger might be a social situation, and that might call up the desire to drink or smoke. Or if snacking while watching TV is your reward, then when you see the TV, you're going to start craving the snacks. So in order to stop needing to use willpower, you need to remove as many triggers or rewards as you can from your environment. If you have a habit of snacking on Oreos after dinner and there are no Oreos in the house, then you don't have to use willpower to not do that habit. When your brain hits a barrier in its usual habit loop, it will actually disrupt it, and it will give you a chance to think logically about what's going on and how you can change this habit. Habits are really powerful, but they're actually kind of delicate. Any change in the trigger or the reward can actually cause the habit to sort of malfunction, and in those moments, you get a chance to make a new choice. The thing about habits is that we sort of zone out. The whole point of a habit is to be sort of the low power mode for our brain, and we tend to not have a whole lot of active thinking happening during the habit. This makes it great if it's a positive habit because you keep going and it doesn't take a lot of energy, but if it's a negative one, you can find yourself doing the habit even though you really, really want to stop doing it. So what this does is help you interrupt your habit and get your conscious brain involved in the situation so that you can start making better decisions for yourself. This might have been a whole lot of information about habits, and they might seem a little complicated now, but I'm going to link an article that I wrote in the show notes about how habits work, and it will break it down section by section and help you figure out how you can take this habit that you don't want to change it and use it to something that you do want it to do. On to tool number 5. Okay, to be fair, these last two are more about manipulations of willpower than they are about getting around willpower. But let's face it, there are going to be times when you have to call up some willpower in certain situations. Let's be prepared for when those situations come up instead of being caught completely off guard and then having to muster a ton of willpower or just giving into something that we didn't really want to do. The first one is called if-then planning, and it is exactly what it sounds like. The cool thing, though, is that studies have shown that it can help your chances of improving your goal by 200 to 300%. Those are some pretty awesome odds for such an easy technique. If-then planning is just, if this happens, I'll do this. If my friends order fried appetizers, I'll get a salad. If my friends order drinks, I'll get a mocktail. The key is simply to think in advance of the situation that you're going into and consider what some of your pitfalls might be. Be really honest with yourself about what usually trips you up and then figure out something that you can do instead. The point of this whole technique is to stop saying to yourself, this time it's going to be different. This time I'm going to have the willpower. And instead, do something that will actually help you make the situation be different. The last tool is to employ your rebellious side. Anybody else got a mean streak when it comes to proving somebody else wrong? For example, if someone were to say to me, "Oh, should you really be eating that cookie? I'm going to eat the damn cookie just to spite them." However, if the same person tried to coax me and be like, "Oh yeah, you should totally eat that cookie," I'm probably not going to eat the cookie. If this sounds like you and you too are still riding your teenage rebellion years pretty hard, then try to find a few friends to help you use it. Tell them what kind of teasing might actually help you achieve your goals. For example, if you're whining over lunch about how you're too tired and you don't feel like going to the gym, tell them to be like, "Oh, sure, you should totally go home and rest." And then let that help light the fires of rebellion within you so that you go to the gym. I get that not everybody else is as rebellious as I am and doesn't necessarily respond to this kind of teasing very well. So just change the wording so that it suits your personality better. If, for example, you need more help being motivated and you're whining about not wanting to go to the gym, maybe you can ask your friends to kind of boost you up. Be like, "No, you can do it. You can totally get out there. I believe in you." And then you can go home and rest after and you'll feel so great about it. Whatever works for you, think about what would help you and just try to employ some friends. It will make the whole thing so much easier. And that wraps up 6 ways that you can use to achieve your goals that are not solely relying on willpower. I would love to hear down in the comments which one you think is going to help you the most. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please go down and hit the like button. And if you'd like more content just like this, hit the subscribe button too. If you're interested in more information about this topic, just go down to the show notes and I'll have some links to articles that I wrote about this topic and also other things that I mentioned earlier in the video. There's also a link down there to sign up for my newsletter so that you can get more tips and tools sent straight to your inbox. And if you'd like to work with me one-on-one, I'll put a link down there to the page where you can schedule your free call with me. Thanks everybody, and I'll see you in the next one.